The turbulence hit so suddenly that the coffee cup on the flight attendant's tray lifted clean off and crashed to the floor. Gasps and nervous murmurs filled the cabin, but in row 9, seat C, a woman in a faded hoodie and ripped jeans didn't flinch. Her eyes locked on the cockpit door as if she already knew what was coming. Her name, on the boarding pass, was Sarah Lane. No one knew her. No one noticed her. She was the quiet passenger who avoided small talk, kept her earbuds in, and pressed herself against the window to watch the clouds drift by. But the captain knew her. Or at least, he used to. The intercom crackled, but instead of the calm, practiced voice of reassurance, there was only static. The second officer's voice came through, tight, urgent, and trembling. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. We're experiencing..." A loud bang cut him off. The plane shuddered violently, dipping several feet in a heart-dropping lurch. Row 9 felt the shift immediately. Sarah's fingers gripped the armrest, not in panic, but in readiness. Through the cockpit window, a blur of movement caught her eye. One of the pilots was slumped over, unmoving. The co-pilot was struggling, hands flying over controls, sweat dripping down his forehead. Sarah's breathing slowed. Years of training she'd sworn she'd buried were clawing their way back to the surface. Then the cockpit door opened. The co-pilot stepped out, his voice shaking but his eyes scanning the cabin like he was searching for someone. They stopped on her. He moved closer, leaning down, and in a whisper almost drowned out by the engine's groan, he said 2 words. Words she hadn't heard in nearly a decade. Words that dragged her back to nights in foreign deserts and missions she wasn't supposed to survive. Ghost Falcon. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She thought she'd buried that name. Buried her. But the code name was never truly hers to give up. It belonged to the people who had once trusted her with their lives. And now, 300 strangers were looking at her without knowing she was the only one who could keep them alive. "I'm not." She began to shake her head, but then the plane shuddered again, a sickening metallic screech rolling through the fuselage. The co-pilot's voice was desperate. "Captain's unconscious. Autopilot's gone. We're 30 minutes from the nearest runway, but we won't make it without you." Her body moved before her mind could catch up. She slid into the aisle, every eye on her, every whispered question trailing behind her like ghosts. She could feel row 9 still in the corner of her awareness, her seat, her anonymity, being left behind forever. Inside the cockpit, alarms blared, red lights flashing across the control panel. The smell of overheated electronics and burnt insulation hung heavy in the air. She slid into the captain's seat, fingers hovering over controls she hadn't touched in 9 years. "Right engine's unstable," the co-pilot said, his voice cracking. "And we've got a jammed flap." Sarah's hands moved with precision. She shut down the damaged engine, adjusted the trim, and began a slow, banking turn toward the nearest emergency airstrip. Her mind worked like it used to, calculating fuel, altitude, wind speed, glide path, each variable falling into place like puzzle pieces. "Brace for more turbulence," she warned over the intercom, her voice calm, steady. The cabin fell silent. Even the children stopped crying, sensing that something had shifted. At 12,000 feet, lightning forked across the sky, and the plane rocked hard. Sarah's jaw tightened. The co-pilot was watching her like a drowning man watches the surface. "Hold on," she said quietly, almost to herself. The runway appeared through the rain, a thin strip of salvation. She fought the wind, kept her descent shallow, and touched down with a screech of tires. The plane slowed, shuddered, and finally came to a stop. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the cabin erupted into cheers, and the clatter of seatbelts snapping open. Sarah sat there, hands still on the controls, breathing hard. She didn't turn when the co-pilot said, "Thank you, Ghost Falcon." She just stood, pulled her hood up, and walked back through the aisle to row 9. She picked up her backpack, slung it over one shoulder, and disappeared into the crowd of passengers being escorted to safety. Most of them would never know her name. And that was exactly how she wanted it. But somewhere in the cockpit, a pilot would remember that on a storm-torn afternoon, a nobody in row 9 saved 300 lives, and then vanished like she was never there at all.